President Martinelli, Vice President Varela, Ambassador Jaramillo, and esteemed members of the Panama delegation and staff who are with us today, we welcome you to the Wilson Center. We thank you for coming. For all of you in attendance in the audience, we're so pleased that you have joined us for this very special opportunity to meet President Martinelli. And following the President's comments and talk, there'll be a Q&A period. My only caveat is that there's questions must be in writing, and that includes the press also, so you'll be provided with notepads to write out questions. President Martinelli joins us following a very significant and very first ever meeting yesterday with President Obama, and the two leaders discussed key bilateral and regional issues, including the next steps for implementing the US-Panama Trade Promotion Agreement. They also discussed progress being made on the Central America Security Partnership, Citizen Security Partnership. President Martinelli was born in Sona, Panama. He went on to complete his secondary education at Stanton Military Academy, which is less than 200 miles away in Stanton, Virginia. Incidentally, Stanton is the birthplace of our Institute's namesake, President Woodrow Wilson.
So his birthplace, yes.
Yeah, that's right. President Martinelli is a graduate of the University of Arkansas and obtained a master's degree in business administration from INCAI Business School in Costa Rica, which is one of the leading business schools in Latin America. In addition to his accomplishments in the political arena, President Martinelli is a very successful self-made businessman and served as chairman of the board of Super 99, a dominant supermarket chain in Panama. On July 1st of 2009, President Martinelli was sworn in as the 49th President of the Republic of Panama for a term of 5 years. And as President, he has strongly promoted a platform of change, effective government, and promoting business opportunities for his country and its citizens. It should be noted, importantly, that Panama has emerged as the second most competitive economy in Latin America, and one of the few countries in the region with investment-grade ratings, and a country with one of the lowest rates of unemployment. The recent signing of a tax information exchange agreement between the Panamanian and U.S. governments now clears the way for the Obama administration to begin discussions with members of Congress regarding the enactment of the Trade Promotion Agreement. Panama is a very strong trading partner with the United States. And in this regard, last year, U.S. exports to Panama totaled $6.1 billion. And upon implementation of the Trade Promotion Agreement, it's expected that 88% of U.S. goods shipped to Panama will receive duty-free treatment. And there's no doubt that bilateral trade will increase dramatically. At a recent event here held at the Wilson Center, the U.S. ambassador to Panama described the relationship between the two countries as extremely good. And I know that that will continue, that relationship will continue and will remain positive. President Martinelli, we're so pleased to have you here. We're honored to have you, and we look forward to your remarks and the discussion afterwards. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much for this invitation. It's always a great opportunity to come and talk about my country, Panama, and especially to the Woodrow Wilson's Foundation, where, as you just mentioned, is very fond of me because having gone to school in Stanton, which was the birthplace of Woodrow Wilson, I have some very fond memories of going back to those years. Well, thank you for this invitation again. As you all know, Panama is a strategic ally of the United States. And this is probably the first government that is not run by politicians, but run by entrepreneurs or businessmen. There is a big difference between running a country as an entrepreneur or as a businessman or as a politician. Usually in Latin America, the politicians become businessmen after they leave their office. Well, this is the other way around. And this other way around has presented us with great challenges and opportunities. And the first things that we had to be done for us was to put the house in order. the house was not in order. When you go to government, you can put it in automatic pilot, and everything goes, and nothing happens. Or you can be an agent of change and improve the quality of living and the quality of life of all the citizens. We selected the hard path, which was the hard path of change. And sometimes change, everybody wants to change, but change others to change. They don't want them to change. And by putting the house in order, the first things we had to do was to show to the public that there were some people who were compulsive offenders of law and order, people who have gone into to places and they began to reclaim land from the sea. They would take property that didn't belong to them. People who were not paying taxes at all. People who had government concessions and didn't pay anything. People who had made laws tailor-made for them. Banks, let me give you an example, had an effective tax rate of 7.8%. Panama is very important in the port business, and when the ports were privatized, the two original ports, Balboa and Cristobal, which came from the American, built by the Americans, and they were at both ends of the canal, there was a very contractual clause on the privatization of the ports, whereby the government would receive 10% or $13 per container moved in or out. Well, immediately the government, or some people in the government, passed a law that they call the law of equiparation law. That means that if I have the same business that you have, and I get better, somebody gets a better deal than the other one, automatically the other person equiparates or goes back to, always down, to the same level that the other guy has negotiated. So then came the negotiation of another port. And instead of paying $13 per container, the new contract said that it was going to pay $9. Then came another port, and then instead of changing the in and out, he changed one word, in or out. So instead of getting paid $9 per container, we ended up receiving $4.50. Then came the last, where it says that the movement of container, as you know, it has a 20 feet, 40 feet, or high cube. All containers were the same. So, in other words, instead of receiving $13 per container, we were receiving $2.25.
Excuse me, Mr. President.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, $2.25. You get the electricity. Generating companies had a very special and very sweet deal. They would generate water, and they would charge water as the price of the barrel of fuel. So immediately we will, and the law also said that you had to sell all the generating capacity you have. So people were not selling all the generating capacity, nor the distributor was buying everything that they had. So all the companies reserved something to go on the spot market. So you ended up on the spot market, ended up being the price fixer for the whole chain of the electricity supply. In other words, the most inefficient would put the price on the most efficient. And that translates into a very high price of electricity. And then we noticed that the government also, there were a lot of projects that were not paid. The government was in arrears in many payments to many companies. And the individuals were paying 27.5% and the corporations were paying 30%. We immediately, after putting the house in order and negotiate, the casinos, they also had a very funny, the full casinos will pay 15%, and the slot machines will pay 10%. No, excuse me. The slot machines at the beginning, they were paying 20%, and with the casinos, they went back to 10%, which was the regular price, the regular tax for the full casinos. And what we did is we negotiated with casinos a better share of the deal. The same we negotiated with the electric companies, and we negotiated with the ports. And because we needed to get some money. We needed to get some money in order to put the house in order. We collected we stopped all the people who were doing illegal reclamations to the sea. And we had a reform on the free zone. And the free zone, for instance, in Panama, has a business of $22 billion, employs 30,000 people, and they hardly were paying, not even probably close to $40 or $50 million in revenues to the government. And the administration of the free zone would cost us, the government, a little more. We were leasing land, only the land, and you will build a 5-story high building, and you were only collecting for the ground floor. So we had to go and put everything in order, and many of these changes that had to be done in order to collect taxes were done to people who knew, people who were related, people who we have been friends for life. But when you come to this job, the only friend that you have is that you have to do a good job, and you just look in one direction, and you have to do whatever is right for principle. So we negotiated with everyone. We negotiated with everyone, and we reduced the corporate taxes from 30% to 25%. We reduced the income taxes for individuals almost to zero, from 27. The first $100,000 you pay no income, and above 100,000 you pay only 15%. We rearrange all there was, for instance, some corridors, roads that they had a very harmful effect to the economy of Panama, because those were contracts made a long time ago that had an internal rate of return. We have to every dollar that we pay in tolls, the actual recovery cost was only 10 cents. And there were no incentives to expand the corridor, and they had debt among them. So in reality, we never collected any taxes. So when you start looking at the whole structure of the economy, it was an economy that works. It was an economy that some people had their own islands of prosperity, and there was a bunch of land of people who had nothing. A real country of the have and the have-nots. And being this government, a government of entrepreneurs or businessmen, we had the opportunity to change Panama, and that's what we did. Now, if you go to Panama, you see our budget. We are building a metro. We changed the whole transportation system. We are building 3 new airports, international airports. We are building 45 clinics. We are building 9 hospitals. We are building hundreds of kilometers of interstate roads with 4 lanes. We have a very extensive program whereby everybody who doesn't have a pension and is above 70 years, we give them a pension of $100. We give all the school supplies, all the books, all the utensils for school, plus a scholarship to all the kids in Panama. We have a very aggressive social program to help the people who are in need, who don't have the opportunity. Panama is the only country in the world that's totally Wi-Fi from one end to the other end. We are in the process of giving computers to each. We already started giving to all the teachers. We already gave over 40,000 computers to teachers who are going to be trainers for the kids who will have also a computer starting next year and then after, because we believe that education is the key to success to any country who wants to have that leap forward and have development and become a developed country. Last year we grew 7.6%. This year in the first quarter we grew close to 9%. We have no unemployment. We are importing people. We had a program. I should have talked to President Obama about this yesterday. I forgot about that. We regularized a lot of illegal immigrants that were here, because they were here, they came in illegally, they were using our schools, our hospitals, our roads, and they pay no taxes. So we had some programs, and that also was a big source of corruption, because every time they were stopped on the streets and they're asking for some IDs, they probably bribed the officer and probably became objects of intimidation or prosecution or whatever. So in order to avoid all that, we made them legal through a very easy process. And we regularized 25,000 people in that respect. We're in the process of regularizing more people. For instance, little things that happen in Panama. For instance, there was a law that all taxis had to be painted yellow. Well, no taxis were painted yellow. Not one single taxi. Now you go to Panama, all taxis are painted yellow. In Panama, we wanted to promote tourism. But whenever you go to the airport, you only were allowed to stay 30 days. And then, if you want to stay longer, you have to go to a long line in the immigration department in order to get an extension to 90 days. Now, you go to Panama, you can stay up to 180 days like you do in the US. There was a big problem with visas. Everybody who has an American visa can come to Panama from countries that we require visas before. For instance, China, India, or any country. I can proudly say that when we went into power, there was a lot of insecurity. The homicide rates were going up, and the police was badly motivated because they were not paid good enough. The first thing we did was to increase 25% the salaries to all police forces. And we took that money, believe it or not, from a very political arm, what we call botellas. In the National Assembly, there is a certain assignments whereby you get paid for not working. You give me your name and I pay you. We eliminated that, and with that money, we increased the salary of the policemen. We embarked in a program to build more jails. Now, after our meeting with President Obama yesterday, Panama is going to be the showcase of some programs that are going to be done that are not even applied in the United States. For instance, we're going to have a program of face recognition in the airport, whereby any person who goes there, we are going to be connected to all the databases of FBI, Interpol, and all different countries, and we will be able to tell if a killer is there, or a drug dealer, or whoever. We are also in Panama. This year we should have 2 million tourism, hit the 2 million mark. We are building, the construction industry is very booming. With this new trade deal with the US, which is a no-brainer, because you mentioned that US exports to Panama 6.1 billion, Panama doesn't even export to the U.S. 1 billion. All the exports, agricultural exports from Panama that goes to the U.S. are based or go through the Caribbean Basin Initiative, which is a very unilateral way, because they can be taken at any time by the United States. With the free trade, we believe that there is going to be growth on both economies. There's going to be more jobs in Panama and in the United States. And also, we talk about the expansion of the Panama Canal. More money is being spent in the United States than in Panama for the construction of the canal, because all the ports have to increase the draft in order to accommodate the largest ships. For instance, in just one place, in Port Elizabeth, in New Jersey and New York, a bridge of over $1 billion has to be built in order to accommodate the larger post-Panamax ships that in order to go to Port Elizabeth and other ports. The eastern part of the United States is going to be greatly, they will appreciate very much the expansion of the canal, all the ports along the eastern part and the southern part of the U.S., because it's very difficult to get merchandise from China, then put it on a railroad or in a truck. It costs money, pollutes the environment, consumes oil. Instead of going to the old water route of the Panama Canal, go to those ports. Imagine a company like Walmart that imports, I don't know how many millions of containers from China, and it wants to send something to New York, to store it in New York. And right now it's unloaded, most likely in San Diego, Vancouver, and from there it goes all the way to New York, or to New Orleans, or to Miami. Now imagine if that ship can go through and unload that container right on any port on the eastern part of the U.S. That would reduce freights, reduce the cost of living of the U.S. And things like that, with improvement of the Panama, with the expansion of the Panama Canal, which represents 8% of the Panamanian GDP, we believe that after the expansion is completed in the year 2014, Panama will be in a very off position to potential our growth and expand and our role in the world as one of the conduits of the world commerce. There are so many things that Panama and the U.S. share in common. For instance, many of you probably don't know that close to 7% of the Panamanian population is dual citizen or Americans. It's a big portion of Panama's population. And whatever we do in security, it helps to stop crime and drug trafficking in the U.S., because Panama is the first frontier to the drug-producing countries. And I came to President Obama yesterday. I didn't came here to ask you for any money. We don't need money. We have all the resources to combat. What we do is to have, we are buying we received a donation from the government of Italy of 6 patrol boats that will cost well in excess of 200 million euros. We're buying also some radars to go across, helicopters, in order to engage the narco traffickers, in order to stop them. And Panama is the country that catches the largest amount of drugs in the whole world. For instance, Britain catches 12 tons of cocaine. The U.S. catches 28 tons. Panama catches in a yearly basis, well over 75. So every ton, every ounce that we catch in there by doing our job is less drugs and less crime in the streets of America. And we are doing our job, and the only thing we need is technical training, because you need to train our soldiers, our policemen, our sailors, and what we're doing is have a country that It's going to be the showcase of Latin America. A small country of 3.4 million people, a country that has very, very many differences, but a country that is changing, a country that by the year 2014, after the completion of the Panama Canal, after the completion of the metro and the metro bus system. Our busing system before used to be all those old rinky-dinky little buses from the county schools in Florida. They would cost $8,000. They ship them over to Panama. They paint it red, and they call it the Red Devils. And they will race from one end of the city to the other, killing people, killing themselves. Yeah, a lot of people were killed. A normal person, will have to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning in order to be in their office at 8 o'clock. It will depart at 5 o'clock in order to get to their house at 8 o'clock. That was killing. A normal person would spend a great portion of their lives in a bus in the worst conditions, racing one end of the city to the other, not being with their kids, not being with the family. That was promoting the disintegration of the family. Kids were also in the same bus. They were not studying. Everything was tied up. We noticed that, and I like to give you all a small, read that speech of Stephen Jobs at the at Stanford University called Connecting Dots. Everything is connected. We began to realize that by connecting and by putting law and order and setting the example. The first thing I did, I pay taxes, and I pay lots of millions and millions of dollars in taxes in my businesses. And I used to call my friends and say, look, this is what I pay, certified Pitt, Marwood, and Mitchell. If I pay, you pay. If I don't pay, then you don't pay. We have to set up by tying the knots of getting the house in order, telling the people that the hanky-panky was over, by telling the people that no more loopholes. Now banks are paying taxes. Everybody's paying taxes. Our tax base has increased substantially. By telling the drug traffickers that there's no more tolerance for them. Before, our soldiers and their soldiers would wave at each other, probably had a cup of coffee or a drink or whatever. No longer. We are catching them. Once we catch them, we send them to Colombia, and we engage. We do not have a policy that they had before of friendship. By giving a good health, good transportation, good education. We are building a bunch of schools too. By promoting tourism, we are building several convention centers in Panama for tourism. Right now in Panama, you can find any brand of hotels. Even a World of Astoria is being built right now. All kinds from A to Z, from in Europe or the US, or any of the local franchises from Mexico or Spain or whatever. It's a new country. And everything was done through a vision of change. But the change has to start from the people from within and from the government out. It's from us in the cabinet and from us to the outside. We have to set up the example. We have made mistakes. In Panama, nobody's perfect. There is corruption, and there will always be corruption in all governments. The one who tells you that there's no corruption in all government is lying to you. We catch you, you go to jail. You go immediately. You go to the process of the judiciary system. But I believe that we have a different country, a country that is going to be the showcase and the model of the Latin Americas, a country that is promoting the well-being of its citizens, and a country that is improving the quality of life of all Panamanians. whoever goes to Panama wants to come back. And I would like to extend all of you an invitation to visit Panama, the ones who haven't been there. And I don't know what else can I say about my country, but it's a wonderful place to be. We are living in great times. Oh, by the way, the reason why we could sign a treaty with the U.S. was because we didn't have any. Everybody thought that Panama was a tax haven. Well, Panama is not a tax haven. We have signed those taxation treaties with a couple dozen countries. We were before in all kinds of gray lists that could put some barriers to investment. We are in the process of getting out. We just signed a treaty of information system with the U.S. We also have investment grade, and I believe that in the near future we are going to get another notch of improvement, because our budget deficit is very low. It's not even, last year I think it was 1.9%. This year is somewhere around close to 3%. And we have the economy is growing. This year we should grow somewhere around 9%, more or less. Probably 10, nobody knows until, it all depends on the price of oil. The price of oil is putting a lot of pressures on us, a lot of pressures on all countries that are not oil producing. It's putting some pressure on the cost of living, on the commodities. It's putting pressure on the pockets of all consumers, even here and everywhere. I just don't know what is going to happen and if the price is coming down soon. But we believe that with the fundamentals that we have made in Panama, in government, we will have a stable economy for the years to come, a place where the Panamanians will increase their standard of living substantially, and a country very, 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 very different than it was before.
Thank you.
Can somebody give him some water?
Yeah,
Por favor. Okay, wonderful. We have a number of questions which I will
Get some water.
Here.
which I will group. Thank you very much for those remarks. There's obviously a great deal of interest in Washington and certainly around the country in the US-Panama Free Trade Agreement. So I'll start off with those two questions. One from Mark Botsford at Botsford Global, and another from Tom Barkley at Dow Jones. What is your expectation of the timing of when the Congress will vote on the trade deal? Do you expect any trouble getting it approved? Are you aware of any undue pressure on U.S. lawmakers to influence the FTA legislation?
Well, I believe and I expect that the treaty will go to Congress very soon. I believe that it adjourns in August. Hopefully before August, we expect that it should be out. As we understand, all three treaties are going into the approval process. Then, after they go into Congress, they will be dissected and one by one, because you can't. I'm not an expert on U.S. politics, so please don't misquote me, because I may be saying something that I don't know. The Panama is probably the smallest one. It's a no-brainer. I mean, it will not hurt any U.S. jobs. On the contrary, it will create more jobs for the U.S. economy. We also reduce all the import duties, because there was a lot of smuggling before we came in. So now we have a flat rate of close to 10%, except 4 or 5 articles that pay a little more than that, from 10% down. So that gives no incentive to anyone to smuggle merchandise into Panama. But even with all that, U.S. companies pay $200 million for merchandise that they export to Panama, and that money, in one way or the other, translate into higher prices, and it will also translate into some deficit or shortfall that the Panamanian government will need to have. So I believe it will go through in the next 60 to 75 days, 90 days. I haven't heard any undue pressure. Of course, every time that something like a treaty will, like this will come through, I am very sure that some grievances will come up of certain people or companies that, hey, don't forget this happened to me, this happened to me. I am very sure that that could be on the pipeline. I haven't heard until now of anything. And the last one was, the third one, it was?
Basically, those two questions having to do with undue pressure and do you expect any difficulty getting it approved?
No, I don't expect. We don't expect any difficulty at all. I think it will be a good, very good for the President Obama and the U.S. administration, because Panama is your best friend, your best ally. We have a very special relationship that dates back since our independence, and the trade balance is such in favor of the U.S. that I don't see how can Little Panama affect anything in the job market of the U.S. On the contrary, it will help. Little Panama bought 39 Boeing planes not long ago, worth well over $3 billion, which are not on that tally, and that a thing like that creates a lot of Boeing jobs because the Panamanian, our airport in Tocumen. Before, if I wanted to go to Aruba or wanted to go to Buenos Aires, I would have to go to Miami, and from Miami, you flew to any of those places. Now, with the expansion of the local airline, which is also a worldwide airline because it used to be jointly owned by Continental and Copa, now it's on the New York Stock Exchange, and the percentage of people from Panama who had shares there is not probably 15%. It's probably mostly owned by different funds from everywhere. But that company alone bought 39 planes, and they have well over 80 planes, and they go to over 60 routes on a daily basis from Panama. So the hub of Panama is one of the largest in Latin America. And by the year 2014, well over 14 million passengers will go through that airport. Yesterday, we announced that Panamanians coming into U.S. in the next 2 months, 3 months, will be able to put their passports and their hands in Panama through a machine we'll call global entry, and then they do not have to go to customs once they come to the U.S. They'll have to go to a different line. But we are working. When President Obama we met yesterday, I told him I had a dream. I said, well, my dream is that people from Panama do not need a visa to come to the United States. He told me, keep dreaming, keep dreaming.
The next set of questions has to do with internal Panamanian politics. 2 questions on the judiciary from Katya Salazar, the Due Process of Law Foundation. What are you doing to improve the judicial system in Panama, in particular the independence of the judiciary? Related question from Carlos Indecochea from George Washington University. Why are you being accused of unconstitutional interference with the judiciary? And a similar question about the relationship between the government and civil society organizations. And then to complete the internal political panorama from Cynthia McClintock, also of George Washington, why did Panama's 2 main traditional political parties fail to open up to new candidates? So let's start with the judiciary, and then possibly something on the political.
Can we go one by one?
Sure. Let's start with the judiciary. Why is it that people seem to think that there are problems with judicial independence in Panama?
Well, today I went to an OAS meeting. I was approached by 2 persons local person, which I asked me, why don't you help me with this? How can I help you? I cannot interfere in another branch of the government. People are used to everywhere, even in the U.S., and they believe that when they go to a Latin American country, by talking to the president, he can influence the remaining bodies of the of government. Today happens to me twice here. Myself, I do not interfere. But in a small country like Panama, whereby, because I have to tell you something about Panama that you probably don't know. In Panama, we have newspapers, and we have a gossip column called Glosa. And then we have news. People are more interested in looking at the gossip than looking at the news. And the gossip, it can be put by anyone. Half of them are lies. The other one half are true. Some of them have something are halfway truths and halfway lies. But in the combination of all, is a big gossip. It's a big WikiLeaks. And then, in a country like Panama, when you don't have news and you have gossip, when people spread the word around that this goes this way, I remember what was the guy's name in the Nazi party, Goebbels, that when you repeat a lie many times, it becomes true. So half of the things you hear from Panama are lies. They probably have some truth, but there is no interference, at least on my part, on the other aspects of the or other branches of the judiciary system. But I have to admit that many people want me to intervene. Very many people. The people that, for instance, there's a guy who has a measure, and I have even received calls from heads of states of other countries, making me to change his measure. I can't do. I'm not in the judicial system. I can't do that. I don't even know how to do it. That's not my job. That is not in my job description. But people keep calling you to do that because they believe that that's the way to do things in a small country like Panama.
Let me take two additional questions about Panama's relationship with Asia from Evan.
Well, let's go to the other three, and then we'll go to Asia.
Okay. The other one had to do with the political parties, and whether there seemed to be the sense that that the two main traditional political parties are not opening themselves up to new candidates. Is that inaccurate?
No, that's totally inaccurate. In Panama, I have a party. My president has a party. Then there is another opposition party and two other opposition parties. And there's another small party. What probably that person was trying to say is that one party was, how do you say fusionar? Merge with another party, and the other party is merging with another party. That doesn't mean that there are no candidates. The candidates, they have to go through a primary process once they go into those parties. That's very inaccurate. If the person probably can say something, say it in public, because in Panama right now, I don't know how that applies.
Got it. Let's move on to two questions related to Asia.
You're missing two of the other ones.
I tried to group them.
You mentioned something
there was
about
one
the
civil
society.
society about the relationship between the Panamanian government and civil society organizations. How would you qualify or characterize that relationship?
Well, I have to tell you something. I have to be very frank and open and honest to you. There's a lot of people who doesn't like to go to the process of election. Very many. And then whenever the person goes to power, they want to tell him what to do. And then some of them, through very honest ways and very dignified and very qualified organizations, they tell you what to do. Others don't. I remember in the process of the as a government, the first thing we had to select two magistrates of the Supreme Court. Some members of a group of some civil societies were requesting the selection of an individual whose term had expired. And they went openly in the public by promoting him. And when I spoke to them, I said, I cannot put that person because that person is so, and he's not qualified at all. And then they didn't like it. Since they didn't like it, they went against the other nominations, which one of them wasn't very good, I have to admit, and he quit not many days ago, about 10 days ago. But what I have experienced with the civil society is that we work together, we allow them to participate, but I noticed that some of them they want to co-govern with you, and some of them represent interests of very powerful people who are behind them. Some of them have a genuine interest in serving the community. Let me give you an example. In Panama, we have a coast everywhere, and the fishing industry has the long liners. Long liners is a big line of 5,000, 10,000 hooks that go at different levels in the sea, and you can catch good fish, you can catch sharks, you can catch turtles, anything. It doesn't discriminate against no one. I was going everywhere, you have to eliminate the long liners. Well, I did eliminate the long liners. You know what happened? Let me tell you what happened. All the local civic societies that were, or ONGs that were promoting, NGOs who were promoting the preservation of the fish, went against that. All the ONGs from NGOs from outside, including the U.S. sport fishermen, all of them praised Panama. The ones inside didn't do it because they were financed and they had special interests of people who didn't want to that to happen. So I spoke with them. Said, "Why didn't you do it?" I can, so and so. I can, so and so. So in a small country, sometimes this very genuine and very spontaneous group, which are very good, are sometimes influenced by people who have other interests, other more interests that want to co-govern and tell the people what to do. For instance, one of them is a person who doesn't pay taxes, and I don't want to go, but he's the biggest evader of taxes, the biggest. And when they told me the case, now I know why this guy is not doing all that. The biggest evader of taxes. Well, that's with that's his problem with the local tax authorities, not with me.
Okay. Let me have a follow-up question related to the one about the fishing from Damon Woods of the U.S. Department of State. What do you consider to be your country's most pressing environmental issue? And then I think since we're short on time, I'll put a number of other questions on the table and you can take them as time permits. Two related to Asia, one from Pedro Bravo of the Embassy of Peru here in Washington. Yesterday, Mexico, Peru, Chile, and Colombia participated in a meeting in which a document called the Alliance of the Pacific Declaration was signed. Panama was there as an observer. What do you expect from this new integration organization? And then finally, from Evan Ellis at the Center for Hemispheric Defense Studies at the National Defense University, beyond the Panama Canal, what are the key steps for the country to better position itself as an international hub in the expanding commerce with Asia? So we have one about Asian integration and Panama's, or the Latin American integration with respect to Asia and Panama's role in that. What kinds of changes besides the canal Panama needs to take in order to better take advantage of these changes, and then finally a question about environmental issues.
The gateway to Latin America from Asia is Panama, and all the major shipping lines converge and go through Panama, the Panama Canal, and the Panama Colón Free Zone, which is the second largest in the world. This year should have a business somewhere around $27, $28 billion worth of, and all of that merchandise come from Asia. They are the main financiers of many businesses all over South America. And that's the direct part. There's also an indirect part who is bought through Panama, but doesn't go on those numbers. The best way to go into Latin America from Asia is through Panama, and there are very many companies that are setting up their operations, our headquarters in Panama. We have a law, for instance, Law 41, that companies like Procter & Gamble has 1,000 expats, 1,000 executives who lives in Panama, and they have all kinds of benefits and taxes and immigration permits and everything of that. And there are very many, we have already very many companies from China and Japan who have their headquarters in Panama, and they take advantage of our connectivity to go to the different places. We do not have any oil, but a company like Total from France has their main headquarters there, or Caterpillar, or 3M, or Merck, or BMW, or Mercedes, companies like that. So the hub for Asian companies is Panama. The other question that was regarding?
The integration agreement by
Chile,
Colombia.
Panama. If I wouldn't been here, I would have been there. So our Minister Rooks went there and signed. We are not observers, we are full members. We believe that through trade and the job creation and the interchange of goods among us, that's the best way to create growth and promote investments and more employment and we have a healthy economy. So that's why also I believe that the U.S. should sign a free trade with all, not with us, with everyone, because if you do not have a free trade agreement with another country, importers from one country could divert very easily the importation of some merchandise that has some advantages, tax advantages, import duties advantages, and it will hurt, on the other hand, the ones who are not in. And the other question was?
About environment, what do you consider to be the principal environmental concern?
To tell you the truth, we had some debates in Panama about mining, and I think it was badly sold to the public. I do not believe that we have a big environmental problem in the mining industry, but there was a big issue about it. And then there were even some people who tried to foment that not to build any more hydroelectric plants and mining. And there are some people who really wanted to put some hurdles and some problems in the economy. But in Panama, we are very careful about the environment. We have a rainforest that is the best in the world with a lot of species. I did try to, and I did it, to close the longliners, and you see what happened to me. Well, the same thing happened to me. I have to tell you this because probably this is one of the questions. At one time, I went with the vice president to the whole council of bishops and our archbishop in the papal embassy, and then they were saying that how can Panama be? Look at all the newspapers, only blood, only pornography, only dead people on the front pages. Look at the news, all blood, all bad news. We need someone to come and speak about against that. Monsignor, that's me. I'll do it. President, if you do it, all of us are going to be in favor of you. All of us are going to support you. And when I did it, you know what happened to me? They called me, I was suppressing the press. They made sashimi out of me, sashimi. And then I went to the priest and say, well, what are you going to do? They just bend down. So every time I see them, I remind them. So everything that a story has different angles. My advisor here, one of my lobbyists, that you call it here, sitting right over there at the end, he told me that he had never seen a country with more freedom of speech and freedom of asking questions to a president than in Panama. None. I mean, there's total and absolute freedom of speech, freedom of writing, freedom of saying anything you want. There are people who abuse that. And you know something? In here, a person can sue when somebody libels you, say something against you. By law, over there, we can't do nothing. We are just like good Christians. They slap you in one face, you have to put the other one.
Okay. How are we doing on time? We started a little bit
I have all the
late.
time.
Do we have another? There are more questions.
I'm
and so
just getting started.
Senor, any questions from the audience? Or do we?
I think,
Time, well,
I think they want to take them in writing, Joe, so
right.
Perhaps I'll end with one, which is related to, I think, the grand themes from Larry Luxner, the news editor of Washington Diplomat, wants to know what specific measures is Panama prepared to take to protect the canal in the wake of this planned $15 billion expansion from possible acts of international terrorism or sabotage.
No, it's a 5.3 billion, not 15.
15. Okay.
I wish it would be 15. No. The canal is Panama is a neutral place. To tell you the truth, it's almost impossible to say that the canal is fully protected, or look what happened September 11th. I mean, if someone wants to do some harm, anyone can do it. But I don't believe that the canal is on the agenda of any terrorist groups to harm a waterway that has nothing to do with anything that happens to mankind. On the contrary, it serves humanity. But we do have some intelligence, there's cameras, there's some patrolling, there's close coordination with the shipping companies. But if someone puts a bomb in a ship and detonates that bomb within the locks in a kamikaze attack, that's nothing nobody can say and do anything about it. It could be done right now. It could have been done in 1942 when the U.S. was in World War II. I mean, that to happen, I don't believe it's never going to happen. But I don't believe that nobody has on the top of their agenda doing something to the Panama Canal.
Mr. President, thank you for coming. It looks like a country that all of us want to visit, so
Welcome.
keep your doors open.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you so much.